This is Curated Currency. This is a NASDAQ market observation. This is not a signal. We are taking a look at NASDAQ on a 5-minute time frame. And what is interesting about this session is that the market actually showed a shift in behavior pretty clearly. But that's only if you slow down and watch how the structure changed throughout the day. Because at first glance, this looks like a market that trended lower. And when you walk through the timeline, that story becomes a lot clearer. So let's start on the left side of the chart and just follow how the market developed. If you look over here around the 20 o'clock, what I call 20 o'clock, which is 8 o'clock, the market actually was pretty balanced and prices moving, but not really. It's not really committing to a direction yet. You see pushes higher, small pullbacks, then another push. Nothing aggressive. It's more so of a slow negotiation between buyers and sellers, and that kind of environment usually tells you that the market is still figuring out where it wants to go. This is the part of the session where a lot of traders start to force meaning onto every candle, but structurally the market is still deciding. Now, as we move toward midnight, around the 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock time, you can see that the structure begins to flatten. Price stops, pushing higher with the same confidence and starts rotating sideways. Candles overlap more. Momentum, it does slow down. And this is what we call compression slash consolidation. Compression is basically the market building pressure. It's not inactivity, it's more so of preparation. And this is usually where traders start losing patience because it feels like something should happen right away. But the market is just pausing. Now let's watch what happens once we get to roughly around 3:30 in the morning to 4 o'clock. This is where the character of the market changes. You see stronger downside candles appear. Price stops negotiating and begins moving with more urgency. And that downside momentum begins. The structure shifts and it's going into like a rotation into a expansion. So the structure is shifting from rotation into expansion. My bad. And this is the first moment of the session where sellers really start, showing control. You can see it clearly around 4 o'clock, 4:30, where it begins accelerating. It begins accelerating lower. Bow. This is where the market stops drifting and actually starts traveling. Now, after that strong push down, something important happens. The market doesn't continue collapsing. Instead, around 5 o'clock, moving into around 6, 7, price begins reacting. You see rebounds, you see candles pushing higher again. But notice something. Even though that the price is bouncing, the structure is not making new highs. It's making lower highs. This tells us that the market is still carrying that bearish pressure even during the rebounds. This is a classic reaction phase. The market just had a strong move and now it's digesting that move. Then we go into, an important moment around 7:38, which is, pre-New York to a sense. Price attempts to, stabilize again. But once we reach around 8 to 8:30, which is when gold opens, you see liquidity get taken beneath the structure. And this time, the reaction is different. Instead of bouncing strongly like yesterday, like before, price continues moving lower. And this is where sellers start extending the move. By the time we reach around 9, pre-New York, because New York opened at 9:30, the market has completed the cleanest downside expansion of the entire session. And you can see the candles stretch. Like you see this, like these candles are stretching. Momentum is increasing. And price is traveling pretty quick, man. It's a big move. And that's the market releasing the pressure that was building earlier in the session. Now, once we reach the 10 o'clock after the New York Open, the market begins slowing down again. You see rebounds, you see sideways movement. Price tries, to push higher several times. But again, the structure isn't claiming higher highs. Instead, it's rotating underneath them. So what we are seeing here is that the market is maturing after a strong move. momentum slows, ranges begin forming again, and the market starts trading inside smaller structures. Then later in the session, around 3 o'clock, 1500 time, we get another push lower. Price breaks down again and taps into liquidity below those lows. But after that move, you start seeing smaller candles, less urgency again, which tells us that the expansion phase is starting to exhaust itself. If there's one thing to take from this session is this: markets move in phases. First they negotiate, then they compress, then they expand, and eventually they mature. Excuse me. On this chart, we saw the entire sequence play out. Excuse me. On this chart, we seen that whole entire sequence play out. Early balance, compression, a shift in control around 4, expansion into 9, then slower rotation for the rest of the day. And when you start recognizing those phases, the market becomes much more easier to observe, because you're no longer reacting to every single candle. You're just watching the behavior of the structure. Same system, different day. This is Curated Currency.